Hello and welcome to Mississippi Insight. I'm Byron Brown. Thank you for joining us. This week, the man who wants to become Mississippi's 3rd District Congressional Congressman talked with 12 News. What does Shuwaski Young want to do to address inflation, the abortion debate, violent crime, and more? Mississippi Democrat joins us ahead of the midterm elections, and we'll recap the latest flashpoint in Jackson's water emergency. State and city leaders are at odds over who will inevitably operate and maintain the water system. The latest in Mississippi politics this Sunday on Mississippi Insight. We are 16 days away from the midterm congressional elections, and Mississippi will select their House delegation for the next U.S. Congress on Tuesday, November 8th. And one race we are watching closely is the contest for Mississippi's 3rd District. That House seat is currently held by Republican Michael Guest. We hope to speak with him on this program next week. And the Democrat who wants to win that seat joins us now. Shuwaski Young is a Mississippi native. He earned a political science degree at Jackson State University, and he's the former external engagement coordinator for the Department of Homeland Security during the Obama administration. Shuwaski Young, welcome to Mississippi Insight.
Thank you so much for having me on. Glad to be here.
Well, thank you for joining us. You're an experienced political campaigner, but this is your first run for elected office. Why are you running for this office?
Well, look, we are in a place in our country right now where folks want to be able to see the future be better for their future. And we want to be able to see Mississippi move forward for a better and brighter future. I'm running in this race because I believe I can move Mississippi forward, both socially and also more importantly economically. And as you know, kitchen table issues right now, such as how are we going to bring jobs to Mississippi, how are we going to improve our economy, what are we going to do about inflation, those are areas where I'm going to make a big difference here in the state of Mississippi.
Broadly speaking, these midterm elections have become increasingly focused on, as you mentioned, kitchen table issues as the inflation is hitting Mississippi hard. Wages are not keeping up with rising prices for food, fuel, housing, and more. What do you want Congress to do right now to help people who are struggling to make ends meet?
Yeah. Well, look, we have to make sure that we get the inflation down here in the country. Gas prices are too high, food prices are too high. The cost of even buying a used car or traveling to see your family on a vacation is way too high. The president is already making moves to make sure that the economy goes in the right direction. We know that there is a good possibility that we're going to slip into a slight recession in the first of the year. That was even announced today. What I'd like to see Congress do is to make sure that we are providing tax breaks for working class families here in Mississippi, that we are providing a opportunity for relief for the people here in the United States, but also more importantly here in Mississippi's 3rd Congressional District.
President Biden and Congressional Democrats are widely criticized on the right for so-called tax and spend policies.
Sure.
Some of those critics point to inflation as an end result of those policies. Are you prepared to support Democratic-led economic initiatives in Washington as they are set today?
Well, look, we have a lot of work to do here within the Democratic Party, both within the state of Mississippi and also nationally. I think that the president and also Democrats are making strides to ensure that the financial stress is arrested from the American people. I'm supportive of President Biden and also House and Senate Democrats. I'm eager to work with Republicans and independents as well in Congress to make sure that we are moving forward with legislation that will improve the lives of all Mississippians, not just Democrats. So the short answer is yes.
Recent polls are showing that inflation, the economy is the #1 issue right now that's facing voters. And if you look at polls, it's looking like Republicans are more likely to take the House, and it's still a toss-up on the Senate. And that gap is now getting wider for Republicans in the House. How concerning is that for you?
Well, look, that's what the media keeps saying. And of course, that will be the mainstream belief that Republicans are poised to take back the House. That's not what I'm hearing when I talk to folks in Jefferson Davis County or in Covington County or Tibahaw County or here in Hinds County or even Madison or Rankin for that matter. Folks are excited about this election for a new opportunity for leadership. At the end of the day, this Republican Party that we're seeing right now has struck down voting rights, has struck down the Violence Against Women's Rights Act, has struck down opportunities for us to lower the cost of insulin prices here in the United States for people at $35. And those particular issues are important to people. But more importantly, it's important for us to be able to create jobs. And we know that. The polling does say that the economy and jobs is #1. That's fine with us because we've been focused on that for over a year and a half now. We want to make sure we're expanding tax breaks for small businesses here in Mississippi. We want to make sure that we are bringing big business into our state so companies like Google and Facebook and Amazon can take interest in our particular state so we can focus on science, technology, engineering, and math and make sure our students are ready for those high-paying career jobs that are going to be coming. So we're always focused on the economy here as far as my campaign is concerned. And we'll continue to expand that as we move forward, especially if I'm elected.
Let's move on to abortion rights in the post-Dobbs landscape. Do you believe that Congress should enact federal law guaranteeing access to abortion acts across the nation?
Look, we have to codify Roe v. Wade. That's what you're asking. That's what we're confirming here. Look, Mississippi led as a national embarrassment for this particular issue. My opponent actually, of course, is someone who touts a record that is not in line with what the American people believe. Over 2/3 of Americans don't agree with this particular policy. Over 53+% of Mississippians do not agree with this particular policy. I want to make sure that we are respecting women's rights. I want to make sure that we make sure that the legislation is being codified in Congress so women are being treated like they should be and not like second-class citizens. Roe v. Wade and the Dobbs-Jackson health clinic case said something very totally different. And when I talk to women who are all over this particular state, especially white women in suburban areas, they don't appreciate it, they don't like it, and that's not something that they want to be able to move forward with.
How much is the abortion issue do you think would help your campaign?
Well, look, this is an issue that we saw voters in Kansas turn out dramatically for. I think that we can count on a lot of women turning out in 20 days for this particular election to show that they don't appreciate how they're being represented. They don't appreciate how they're being treated. I think it's going to be a big deal for us.
Large voter turnout, small voter turnout, what are you hoping to see come in November?
Look, we want to see a large turnout, quite frankly. Mississippi has, an opportunity to move forward for a better and brighter future with a new representative, someone who cares deeply about this state and cares deeply about this country, someone who has worn the uniform of our armed services, someone who's worked in national security, and someone who is from Mississippi, has worked in state government in Mississippi. This is a big deal for us. I think that we have an opportunity to win. I think that turnout will be the case. And quite frankly, Frank Badeau, who is the Republican Party chairman here in Mississippi, it's exactly what he said about a month and a half ago when he was talking to Paul Gallo.
Overwhelming crime is a concern for many Mississippi viewers across the state. It's not only a street level of violence, but it's also the specter of mass shootings in our schools and other public places. What do you want to do on the national level to address the concerns of crime?
So we have to be for common sense gun control legislation. I'm a Mississippi guy, born and raised here in the state just like everyone else. I'm a Christian just like pretty much everyone else here in this particular state. Hunting is a part of life here in Mississippi. It's part of our sportsmanship. And I am a strong Second Amendment advocate. But we don't need AR-15s on the street. We don't need extended magazine 100-round clips on the street. That's something that's not safe for us. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I haven't heard of one person that is deer hunting or duck hunting with an AR-15. So we have to be able to move that legislation forward to get common sense gun control here in our particular country. Now, Republicans about a month and a half ago did move some legislation forward, working with Democrats in Congress. That was good, but we have to be able to do more. Folks, there needs to be an age restriction. There needs to be a background check. We need to ban bump stocks. We need to make sure that assault weapons are off the streets and that extended magazines are no longer applicable in our state.
When you say age restriction, are you talking the age of 21 or
18. 18.
Okay.
Right.
And 18 to receive the AR-15?
I don't think anyone, regardless of age, should have an AR-15 in the United States. Mm-hmm. That's just my opinion. We don't need assault weapons on our streets. But certainly, if there's going to be someone, if it's going to be something that people actually have, you need to be 21 years of age to be able to purchase it. That's a big difference between purchasing a 12-gauge shotgun that you're going to go deer hunting with or duck hunting with. Mm-hmm. It's just not necessary, and it's not common sense.
We've tried to focus on issues and policies so far, but I wanted to ask you about your incumbent right now. Why do you think that you're a better candidate than Michael Guest to hold this position?
Well, look, great question, by the way. Look, Michael Guest has been a DA before he actually ran for the United States Congress. Mm-hmm. And he has not been challenged, number one, neither in 2018 or 2020 by a candidate that has a background unlike anyone else that's here in Mississippi. I believe that I'm a better candidate for this particular race and a better person to serve our congressional district. One, because I have compassion and love and empathy for our particular state and the people that are within it. His voting record demonstrates the opposite. This is someone who voted against voting rights. The Freedom to Vote Act is what I'm referring to. This is someone who voted against the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act as well. This is someone who voted against the Reauthorization of Violence Against Women's Act. And this is someone who actually voted against our particular bipartisan infrastructure bill, one of which where we have an opportunity to bring so much money to our state to improve our roads, improve our bridges, improve our waterways, expand high-speed internet, and looking at the issues that we have saw right here in Jackson couldn't be more important than now. This is someone who has constantly even voted against school lunches. I don't know what he has against school lunches. It is a staple of what we have always had here in Mississippi, and especially for us being the poorest state in the country, this being the second poorest district in the poorest state of the country, people need that help. And that's not something that they're seeing that's being provided from them from the federal government via their legislative representatives in Congress right now. People don't feel heard. People don't feel represented. People don't feel like they have anyone to go to for their representation. What I am saying is, give me an opportunity to represent the 3rd Congressional District. I will only represent Democrats and Republicans, independents alike. I will work in a bipartisan way to ensure that we bring the much needed resources to our state that we deserve, quite frankly, and to be able to change our national reputation here in our particular state. Folks want to be able to come to Mississippi and see us move forward, but they don't want to be able to be in a state where they feel intimidated, where they feel like they can't be part of the business community, where they feel like the social community that's here within our state is not inclusive. I think that my candidacy, someone who's worn a uniform of the armed services, someone who served in national security, someone who deeply loves the state, someone who's worked in state executive government, the federal government as well in the highest echelons of government, someone who has even worked for a seminary, for example, overseeing a $75 million capital campaign, and someone who has worked all over this particular country with an array of experience, both in the private sector, working with corporations and individuals and foundations when I was with the San Francisco Bar Association and being able to raise money for low-income families, making sure that we are putting our country first. I think that this is something that the people of Mississippi deserve, and they want to see someone who's going to represent them and be available. He's not held one town hall since he's been in office. He has missed more votes than the average congressperson in the entire United States, 98% to be exact. Yet, he voted by proxy for those votes. And it was a particular piece of legislation, because it came from Speaker Pelosi, that he voted against. But yet he still uses it. So Michael Guest is somebody who says one thing and does another. And that's why I firmly believe I'm the better candidate for this particular race.
Last week was a rough one for state and local relations in Mississippi's capital city. The latest tiff over water management was made apparent in a news release from the governor's office. Governor Tate Reeves claimed that the city of Jackson was pulling out of the unified command structure, that multi-jurisdictional team tasked with shoring up Jackson's water system. City leaders said that's news to them. 12 News' Leah Williams picks up the story.
According to Governor Tate Reeves, city officials told his office the mayor will no longer work with the unified command structure, which consists of state and federal partners working to fix Jackson's water issues. We reached out to the governor's office for clarification and did not get a response, but Jackson City Council members say they had no knowledge of the city ending cooperation.
The city of Jackson has not, as for the city council, taken a vote not to cooperate with anyone. We want to continue to make sure the citizens in this city have good, safe drinking water.
If the governor's not on board, it's not going to work. If the mayor's not on board, it's not going to work. Best I can figure from talking to sources I have is that we're moving forward to with the unified command structure, and everybody's still, trying to read from the same hymn book.
Right now, the unified command structure is working to contract a third-party operator to oversee the water treatment plant. Mayor Chokwe Antar Lumumba said he never mentioned ending cooperation, but did say the city will not agree to a contract without contributing to approving it. Residents feel like leaders just need to put their differences aside for the good of the people.
The water doesn't taste good. It tastes awful. It tastes like fish, or like you're drinking from a pond. This has been going on for almost 100 years, and they have not done what they need to do in order to fix the situation.
The mayor, the city officials need to work together. I mean, the more cohesive they are, the more, the more we're inclined to be, that we're inclined to be together on things.
One state representative says he trusts the city to fix the infrastructure issues.
I have the utmost faith in the city of Jackson. I want to make sure that we have the competent organization or company to ensure that we won't run into these problems anymore.
That's Leah Williams reporting. We're set to talk directly with Mayor Lumumba next week on these issues, and reporters have already gotten the governor's take on camera. That's straight ahead. Welcome back. Just as Jackson leaders learned of the governor's claims on the unified command structure, Mississippi leaders learned about a new congressional inquiry. House Democrats Benny Thompson of Mississippi and Carolyn Maloney of New York have told Republican Governor Tate Reeves that they want to know more about the state's response to Jackson's water emergency. Specifically, they want to know how the state will use $10 billion from the American Rescue Plan Act and bipartisan infrastructure law. Tuesday, during an appearance in Boonville, Governor Reeves took reporters' questions about the inquiry and the impasse with Jackson leaders.
Mississippi received about $1.8 billion through the most recent round of funding. In that $1.8 billion, we've already allocated approximately $750 million to infrastructure. We allocated approximately $450 million for cities and counties through matching funds. We allocated an additional $300 million for $750 total for our rural water associations. You know, the situation in Jackson with the water crisis is certainly an unfortunate situation. In fact, though, Mississippi has over 1,100 different water systems being operated. I've been in government now for almost 19 years. The only time I've ever had to take over a water system and actually operate it was in the city of Jackson, and it was due to mass incompetence by those who should have been running it. It was an unfortunate situation, one that we certainly aren't proud of, but on July 29th, there was a boil water notice for the entire city of Jackson. By August the 29th, it became clear to me that the boil water notice, which is a water quality issue, was going to turn into a water quantity issue as well. When you can't have adequate water quantity in a water system, what that means is the potential for literally a city of 151,000 to have an inability to flush their toilets, and the crisis and the chaos that would potentially ensue made it necessary for me to declare a state of emergency for the state to go in and take over the operations. We were able to restore water quantity within 72 hours. We were able to restore water quality within 2 weeks, and we haven't had a boil water notice citywide since that time. We got more work to do. Obviously, the federal government and the EPA and the Department of Justice is looking at a potential receivership, I presume, for the city, and we'll continue to work towards that. In essence, what happened is when we went into the water treatment facility at O.B. Curtis on August the 29th, we went in and started operating and fixing the things that needed to be fixed. We did so through working with our federal partners at FEMA. That's the Federal Emergency Management Agency, because not only did I declare a state of emergency, I asked President Biden to declare a federal emergency, and he complied. He also stated that it was a federal emergency. And so through that process, we were able to use our EMAC system, not unlike what we do in tornadoes or hurricanes, wherein we bring people from other states to help us. Well, that EMAC has really been fruitful, and we've seen literally people from about a dozen states come in and help us operate that water system. But that's an unsustainable model in either the intermediate or the long term, because as you go off the national news and you go off the national headlines, it's harder and harder to get people from other states to come in through that EMAC system, which we're paying for, by the way. And so the next step, obviously, is to hire an outside third-party contractor to come in and run the water treatment facility. We issued an RFP as a Joint Incident Command Center on Friday to ask for that, to ask for an RFP. And in that, we had 3 different entities or individuals involved in the evaluations process. We had 1 individual from the city of Jackson, 1 individual from the State Department of Health, which, by the way, does not report to the governor, and 1 individual from the EPA. Again, a federal partner, a state partner, and a local partner that has the ability to evaluate the responses, pick the best choice, and then go forward. It makes perfect sense. We had been told by some at the city that perhaps they didn't like that fact, and so we were concerned by that, and hopefully we'll get good responses. We'll work with the city to enter into a contractual relationship with someone to come in and run the water treatment facilities. But I've got literally 15 to 20 state employees in and out of that facility every day that have day jobs. We don't run water systems as a state. We're there as an emergency measure that has to end at some point. State taxpayers will require us to do that, and so we're simply trying to take that next step, get a third-party independent contractor in to run that water treatment facility.
That's Governor Reeves. We'll hear from Mayor Lumumba next week. We're back in a moment. Big thanks to Congressional candidate Shuwaski Young for joining us this week. Monitor 12 News for more candidate interviews and election news ahead of the November 8th elections. And we'll be back next weekend with more of the political and current affairs coverage that you demand. I'm Byron Brown from all of us here at 12 News. Make it a great weekend.